Welcome back to another episode of Bleav in the Broncos on the Bleav Network, sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook, your home for everything sports betting related. Patrick Chiotti, Bri Maestas back in the mix. Bri, it's so good to see you. How you doing?
We're just days away from, regular season football. I couldn't be better. It is ramping up that time of year, which means temperatures are going to cool off too, which I'm finally going to admit that I might be a fan of, because the 99, 100 degrees, it's getting to me, man. So I couldn't be happier that it's going to be fall.
Well, it doesn't help that you wear black 99% of the time. So, if you want to make prop bets on what color Bri is going to wear for Broncos opening day, I think black is the heavy favorite right now. You cannot make those bets over on FanDuel, but what you can do is you can go place some money on the Denver Broncos and New Orleans Saints dome coming game 2.0. The preseason. That's what we called it last year. The preseason game, Sean Payton returning to New Orleans to face the messy New Orleans Saints. Currently, the Broncos are 5.5-point favorites. Over under set at 39.5. You can throw your bets down on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Bri and I are here today. We're going to recap the game against the Cardinals. The Broncos staying red hot even without the starters. Or maybe we did see the starters play in the second preseason game, Bri, and we just don't know it yet. We're also going to be looking forward to the Saints game. Who boosted their stock against the Cardinals? Who hurt themselves against Arizona? We're going to answer all those questions in this episode of Bleav in the Broncos. So, Bri, Broncos win big at home. First preseason game at home. Only preseason game at home for the Denver Broncos. Some starters got to play, just guys who Sean Payton said wanted to get reps, guys like Evan Ingram, RJ Harvey was a part of that group. Both of them had very big plays, got their snaps, and then got out of the game. Who stood out to you in this game against the Cardinals?
Well, I think one play speaks highly above the rest of them. You've got Evan Ingram out there just cutting into, if you want to shout them out specifically as tight end reps, you can, but whatever he's doing is working, and it's exactly what we wanted to see from that offseason acquisition, because there's been a question mark on the entirety of the offense. Does it have a spark? Where is it coming from? There was a supreme lack of not just depth, it was just role versatility. What were we seeing from the tight end, running back, and wide receiver group? And then Evan Ingram comes in and says, I can do most of that. Like, give me the ball. And we saw him cut into quite a few yards. I saw a tweet, and I can't remember who I should appropriate it to, but the idea was that you're getting 25% of the total yards that we saw from our number one contributor this last season. I think that stands out on its own. I'm very excited about what we were able to see from, the second and thirds. I know the idea that the ones aren't going to play and then you're going to shoot out a bunch of your starters there, it's just up Sean Payton's sleeve in order to do so. I did, however, enjoy how the Cardinals beat writers were upset by the fact, because nobody likes getting beat by double digits. And the fact that it was by 20 or more points makes me a happy camper. So I'm seeing a lot of, again, optimism. And it's the worst thing you can do if you cover a team and you don't want to be fandom about it, but there's a lot to go around. So you're seeing these Denver Broncos be deep in lots of the positional groups, which begs a lot of questions. And Pat, I know you've seen it too. It starts a conversation of who then becomes expendable. It doesn't matter how well you're doing on the team right now or how well you've performed during training camp or what the plans were in 2024. We are peaking into 2025 and seeing that there's a lot of question marks, but they're not the question marks we're used to. It's not who's going to step up if somebody goes down. It's who can be replaced easily with their skill set and the volatility in which we find ourselves. So I think it's really interesting to see that it's not too early to tell who could possibly make this team, but I think there might be surprises come that first week.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. And as we get closer to the regular season, Bri and I will be discussing our final 53-man roster prediction. Lots of question marks right now, especially with a couple of key injuries along certain positions. Michael Burton currently dealing with an injury, so they bring in Adam Prentice, who will be the fullback going into this final game. And also Nate Atkins dealing with an injury. So other guys are having to step up there. I know Prescorn is someone who had to step up. He had a costly fumble in the end zone. Can't do that. And then Sean Payton was also talking about, guy they spent a draft pick on, Caleb Lohner, and his inexperience in playing football and how that's kind of led to those pre-snap penalties. And it's just something you can't do. So it's going to make this cut down very interesting. Other players, guys who have been here for a couple of years, just kind of not living up to the expectation, especially if this is going to be a Super Bowl team, that expectation is very high. So they have to be able to meet that expectation. And guys who have been around the league or have been in this locker room for the last 2-3 years, they know what the expectation is. And if you're not going to play up to it, you're going to be on a different team. And I don't think Sean Payton is really afraid to hurt anybody's feelings in that sense. Bri, let's go into stock up, stock down from this Arizona game. Who is the one player that you are calling out as a stock up guy?
Well, my question and in rebuttal to that is, how early is too early to claim a breakout season for a player? We're outside the realm of possibility here, because I know for a fact, we mentioned here on Bleav in the Broncos prior to even training camp starting, that you had to figure out who's going to have a breakout year. It's hard to tell, but it needed to be Troy Franklin. And now you're seeing just that. It is the hot topic of conversation, from whether or not it's great days out there on the field at Dove Valley or whether it's preseason showouts. I think he's finally had the turnaround, and a lot of speculation as what has been leading to that. It's hard to predict in itself. It's hard to see a increase in efficiency and productivity from a player who is having such a rough go at it. And I think it's really important to point to the fact that he's been able to do whatever was necessary in order to change the narrative for himself. And it's been quietly done. So it's been impressive to see what he's been able to do. And with such limited time reps, we're talking about preseason and training camp. So it may be too early to really stamp that as a viable response, but I'm still very hopeful that this is the year that Troy Franklin is able to really prove that the Broncos made the right decision in drafting him and reuniting him with Bo Nix and making him a big part of what their offensive plans are. And we're starting to see that, because we talked about all the tools that he has, that vertical speed, the ability to create separation. And now he's taking all of that, really carving out a role. And so he's increased his reliability. He's showcasing, during camp and during the intermediate, during the preseason, it has signaled to me that he's a much more well-rounded receiver heading into his second year. And he had a hot start to camp, which his teammates have been taking notice of. So I think if the consistency shows up, it's going to make an impact, and it's going to show his growth through the offseason. Now, unfortunately, sometimes it takes players a little bit to cut their teeth, and the NFL is a different speed. We talk about it all the time, but football is football. And I believe the metamorphosis is really taking place. He went ahead and placed himself inside whatever cocoon he was doing during his preparation. And I'm declaring that the breakout season's already happening because of the just market growth. He seems like a completely different player. He seems much more comfortable. And it seems like the slow, mechanical burn of Sean Payton's plan. We're seeing that sort of blossom right now, just with everyone who's involved, and this continuity helps just in multiple facets. It's also interesting to note how many notes is Sean Payton taking, right, from his play callers who are calling the game through this preseason? Are we going to see the same benefactor when we get into the regular season? I'm hoping yes. I'm hoping it's not just a a flash in the pan because we've got some different minds going through what they need to do for resume building. So it seems like it's translated from training camp to preseason, and I think he's going to be quite effective when we go into live games. I know that first game against the Titans is going to be really interesting to see where the spread goes, but I've said it in the past, and I just want to make it kind of clear where my head is when we start talking about the wide receivers in general. I'm not looking for a breakout 1,000-yard season from anyone in particular, specifically because of the depth and because of how I know Sean Payton likes to use versatile skill sets. I could see a ton of players on this offense eating to create wins, because at the end of the day, those stats are nice, but we're looking for those win columns.
Yeah, I was very, very your comments, from that earlier episode about him being the breakout guy. When we were talking about it was like, okay, like we want him to be that guy, but here's the steps that he needs to take in order to get there. And I love that you said like in his little cocoon, because that's what I see this as being. Like he was at Oregon and he was this, fun stretch the field player, but it's like you're going into the NFL and it's a different game. And now, after spending that season, it looks like he really has. Like he's kind of starting to blossom into that professional, right? That's what we said was he's got to learn how to be a pro. The Evan Ingram play where he's downfield, Franklin is downfield, and Pat Bryant is like 20 yards further downfield, and Franklin just kind of runs at the defender and screens him. That's the kind of stuff that we want to see. That's effort. That is unselfish football play. And that's what we needed from Troy Franklin. We talked about in the last episode his play against the Niners and like catching that fourth down pass. That's one he probably would have dropped last season, all that stuff. He is coming around. And I'm really excited to see how Sean uses him, because it was really like kind of, he started out the season healthy scratch, kind of like ramping him up, and then he gets into it and it's just like, we see the vision, right? But we got to put it all together, and I feel like he's putting it together. So I'm excited to see him play in this next game. And like I like, obviously it's not going to be a normal like NFL play calling day, but we've seen Lombardi call plays, we've seen Webb call plays now. This is probably going to be Sean Payton calling plays in this game. So I'm excited to see what Franklin can do in this next game. But Bri, I'm right there with you. I think that he's someone that can make a massive impact in this game for the Broncos going through this whole season. We have a bevy of wide receivers now. We have too many wide receivers. How are we going to keep all of them?
Pat, could you see though them creating those false Nomer mismatches, because now Franklin can be a contested catch candidate? It's like one of those things where it's like, why not?
There's and my mind is just spinning with all of these different like opportunities, and it won't just be opportunities for him. It will be opportunities for other players. Like having him and Evan Ingram on the same side is going to be cheating, essentially. You can use Franklin to open up Ingram. You can, or vice versa, right? So I think there's a lot of things that they can do with this guy. I think he is not just going to be like Gabe Davis is always someone who comes to mind, right? Like a bigger, stockier receiver who's just kind of like a straight line guy. And that's kind of what he was in Buffalo, just chuck it downfield and hope that he makes that catch. I don't see that being Troy Franklin's role or the type of player that he becomes. I really think that his route running is coming around. A very violent, sudden breaks in and out, confusing the hell out of cornerbacks and DBs. I think that he's going to be a real impact player. Very excited to see what he can do in this next game against New Orleans. Bri, my stock up player for this game should come as no surprise to people who follow me on the X. Alex Forsyth had himself a game. Now, there's still things that he needs to clean up, still things that I see that he needs to clean up, but it's getting real difficult to justify starting Luke Wattenberg over Alex Forsyth. When we see the impact that Forsyth has in the run game, his ability to really key down double team blocks, his second level blocks, his pass protection, again, still something he needs to work on. It's not perfect, but that is just a matter of like overall play strength. He has good technique. It's just he gets shoved back a little too easily for my comfort, but I think the potential is there. This is a guy who's going into his third year in the league. I think that his play against the Cardinals was fantastic. He did a good job of protecting Stidham, allowing Stidham to step up into the pocket too, which I think was something that, you know, they needed to work on as an offensive line and just the pass protection unit. But man, his effect in the run game cannot be understated. The Harvey touchdown was, that was about as tight as a lane that you could think of. But him and Throckmorton and I think it was Palczewski got it done. Or it might have been Gargiulo. Rest in peace to our boy Gargiulo. But he's not dead. He's just, his ACL is blown out. I watched that play, by the way, from the end zone. Not pretty. It's not fun. But I digress. Alex Forsyth is my stock up player from that game. Hopefully, you know, I don't think he's the long-term answer at center. You know, I would prefer somebody who can play at least a Pro Bowl level talent. But I think based on like what they have in the room right now, I think that he is the better option. Yes.
I was muted on that one. I apologize. Break the fourth wall here. I have to agree because there wasn't a clear question mark coming into this, and everyone wanted to say that it was just going to be Wattenberg starting here. You weren't going to have to worry too much about that there was a built-in chemistry there along the line. But the big thing that I was worried about, and I know we talked about this ad nauseum, is the idea that once somebody goes down, who's the depth? Well, if the depth piece goes down, then you've got more questions than answers. We've seen a lot of rotational depth with Matt Pert stepping in at multiple positions, which I'm happy to see. But Gargiulo was one of those individuals who we thought was going to really plug and play at the level that we needed. Now, there's a stark drop off from your starting to your second line, and you don't ever want to see those really gone through very quickly. But the Forsyth-Wattenberg conversation is still wide open in a long-term conversation. So for this season, they're going to have to make do for whatever decision that they're made there. But it does open up the possibility that a first-round lineman is in the realm of possibility for the Denver Broncos moving forward. And I don't think that that's something that has to go untended to right now, because all of this is just more so of the formulaic response to how long has it been since it's been done? And what do we do moving forward to make sure that it's not a question mark? And so as you're looking at these younger guys coming in for development, and you have these undrafted free agents that they're bringing in, and all the money that they're spending in free agency to continue to bolster this line, as you have solidified Bo Nix as your starting quarterback, the number one thing you really don't want to have is a question mark of whether or not Alex Palczewski is ready to go, or if Clay Wibb is the answer as a rotational guard and center, or whether or not Joe Michalski is the guy you want taking center snaps in 2 years. Because honestly, the answer to that question as it presently stands is no, thank you. And I don't think that's where any of us want to be. So I'm glad that it's continued a conversation, but it does pose the bigger question of, isn't it nice to be a Denver Broncos fan as we're continuing to have depth arguments as the roster continues to look pretty good, although injuries are a thing, as we saw during that previous game, and RIP Gargiulo's ACL.
Oh, man, I felt so bad too, because we had just talked about, you know, the potential of Nick Gargiulo being a rotational guy, maybe someone that they can bring up to speed through this year, and maybe potentially a Ben Powers replacement. And man, I tell you, Bri, he was looking really good against Arizona too. I felt so bad for him. The guy who ended up making the tackle on the run is the one who just flew into the side of his leg, like automatically. He goes down. felt really bad for him. He is on season-ending IR. I heard Sean talk about it. Sean was a little disappointed. So if Sean is disappointed and you can hear the disappointment in his voice, that he really liked that kid. So
a man of not many strong emotions.
I know, like,
emotion.
like you could tell he messed with Gargiulo heavy. Bri, stock down. Who's the guy, the one player from the Cardinals game who you felt did more damage to their stock than good?
I don't think it's any fault of their own, but Audric Estime continues to be the odd man out when it comes to the run. I know I was going to go in a different direction here, but as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't care how much Sean Payton tells us that it was by design, that it was, thirds or quarters here for each of the running backs, and they're going to go out and do their job. It really was a game of running backs just trying to outdo themselves. You saw Jaleel McLaughlin and RJ Harvey and Blake Watson all really sort of trying to turn out something. And it was really fun to see, but it does make you question what the plan would even be for Audric. And I don't think it's necessarily that he won't make the roster. It seems more likely than not that he would if they go for running backs, simply because of his draft status. I don't think you can, in good faith, just pull that plug right now. So that's the only hesitation that I'm having, because he's in a unique power role. And I think if there's any hope for that, it's going to be any kind of special teams work that you can give and having that solid path there. But you would need to add more versatility in a veteran running back, which I think it's a little late to do so. But Estime continues to struggle in pass protection. And I think that there's a question of whether or not there's a vulnerability there that's going to be answered. And so there may be this odd man out question. And I don't know if Blake Watson has done enough to really replicate it and put himself into there, even though I think there's a conversation for it. And I think Twitter has been alive with, no, he's, Blake Watson's your third, no matter what. J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, Blake Watson. And I think it's an interesting concept because it all comes down to what you're trying to see and what moves the sticks. And I think Audric Estime is the only one where I'm having a question mark. And it's sort of funny because we're talking about a guy like, Troy Franklin, who was having that type of year, but this is now the second year in a row where we're not really seeing an appreciable difference from what Estime brings to the table. What I'm hoping for is that a little bit more of a can we see more short yardage, power back, that bruising style that maybe takes in a little bit more of the vision point of view, because it's lacking enough where you could see where it would be I want to say beneficial for the game plan moving forward. But if that's your only thing you're contributing to the run game, I think you really hold yourself back. But my question, Pat, is when you have a response to this, is it a manufactured limitation from what he's being asked to do?
I don't think it is. I think this is look, they want to go to the more, and we talked about this in the last episode, they want to go to the more wide zone stuff, and that's fine. But it's those situations where you have to take the most advantage. Like you're a big guy. Like you're a massive man. You should be really good at pass pro. Like realistically, you should be really good. I mean, it's so funny to me that a back like J.K. Dobbins, who's about 3 inches shorter than me, is outstanding in pass pro. Audric Estime is a large human being. The fact that you cannot block well in the pass game is kind of scary. That's kind of what's going on. Obviously I would love for them to use him in those short yardage situations. Hey, we're gonna go I or strong I or whatever, and we're just gonna run downhill. I think he's perfect for that, and we've talked about that before. But if the offense is changing and this is what the play call is, it doesn't matter. I'm not good at that. I don't fit in this play call. It doesn't matter. Do your job. You're going to get moved around. You're going to have to do different things throughout, each and every play and formation and concept. You just have to do your job. And you have to do it well. If you want to make this 53-man roster, you have to do it well. You are a draft pick, my guy. Like you have a contract. There's guys that are fighting to have what you have, and they're busting their ass to do it. They're not as big as you. They're definitely maybe not as strong as you, but they're busting their ass. That's effort, right? So we need to see the effort out there, and it's just not there. So this next game is going to be it's literally going to be the make or break game. The fact that Sean was giving carries, like, oh, the plan was to get Estime in. Well, apparently he really liked what he was seeing from those other guys, and you're not doing enough to wow him. I know Estime was on some special team stuff, and that's great. That's a good way for you to stick on the roster. But like, man, you got to be able to show that you can pass protect. You got to be able to run the ball. If it's fucking wide zone, man, then you gotta just run it. Like, you have to make those changes as the player. Like, you have to be the adjust. The offense, I always tell my players this. The offense does not adjust to what you can do. You have to adjust to what the offense does. And if you can't do that, there's another team that will gladly take you and stroke your ego. Okay.
It's not for lack of trying, right? You can run as hard as you possibly can and have all the heart in the game that you want. Yeah. But I think that at a certain point, the literal wall in front of you prevents you from making any traction.
I agree. Bri, my stock down guy for this game was Damarri Mathis. I think that the time is running out. Showed little tiny flashes of still being a good contributor last season, but I'm just not seeing it. I know he also, I Bleav, is dealing with an injury, so that's just even worse. But this is a guy who has not been able to really make a mark, especially after a decent start to his career and just getting absolutely torched. He's now down with an ankle injury. Gave up a touchdown in our last game, an ugly one at that. Three catches on 4 targets and a passer rating of 149.0. There's a couple other players on this roster that I think are maybe earning their spot. I know Jaden Robinson has been quietly having himself a really, really nice preseason. He's allowing a pass rating of 39.6 on 4 targets. 1 yard, 1 catch for 1 yard, 39.6 passer rating allowed. Very quiet, but also is playing on special teams, so there's stock up for him. So this has turned in from stock down on Damarri Mathis to stock up on Oregon State Beaver Jaden Robinson. But I just think at this point, Mathis's time is probably done. I think he's probably going to end up on another roster before the season starts. It's really unfortunate because I had high hopes for him when they drafted him. I thought he could be a good rotational piece, but he just never turned into it. Maybe we focus less on the rap career, more on playing football. That's gotta say it. Let's be real.
I mean, if your play doesn't speak for itself, then you're unfortunately open to all of those other digs. But I will say that it does seem more positive that there is the availability of bodies on the roster right now that will kind of take up that slack. It's unfortunate given Mathis's repetitive struggles because it has been a little bit of a roller coaster, and it's a shame given the big plays that he does make don't make up for maybe some of the opportunities in which he gets torched. I do feel like he got the runaround most of this preseason, which is unfortunate, but then you see him light it up and be just so sticky in coverage during either training camp reps. But honestly, a lot of that has to do with it being practice and the other side of the ball, being able to predict what they're going to do. That's not the same as real world snaps. And so maybe we're just seeing that delineation again. It's not to say that, like you said, Mathis won't pick it up and make it on another roster, and maybe this circumstance isn't the greatest situation for him. But I love that you were able to find someone that could, and Jaden Robinson stepping in could be that answer there, because I don't know if Quentin Newsome really is. I think that there's just a lot lacking in a lot of his games. So I am looking forward to it. I do think in general, I still have a question mark, right? Because we won't see it until it's necessitated. And the necessity comes from someone being out long-term during the regular season. So I'm hoping we don't have to answer that question, but we almost always do, because you can never have too many defensive backs. So keep that one bookmarked for a conversation later.
Yeah. And like, I'm, as we're talking about this, I'm writing down like, okay, last year they kept 6 cornerbacks, but one of them was Tremont Smith. So we can maybe assume that they don't keep 6 this year and they keep 5. For all the slack that we're kind of giving Jaquan McMillan, he's been playing really strong. Like, his one game was pretty strong in coverage. So I don't know if he's necessarily lost his job at all. But, PS2, Riley Moss, assuming that we keep Jahdae Barron as a corner, McMillan and KAD, there's 5, right? So if they're going to keep one more for special teams purposes or what have you, maybe it is Jaden Robinson, or maybe that's a guy they put on the practice squad. Maybe it is someone like Quentin Newsome, who's been on special teams. I think there's more questions in the safety room for special teams.
I think Pickett has had a louder.
Pickett's been pretty good on special teams so far, but they still, like, I want that other gunner, or I want the other cornerback that they keep to be a gunner. I think KAD should be a gunner on punt, but I think they need to find one more guy that they can get in there as well. Bri, let's look forward to this next game, New Orleans. What do you want to see? 2 questions. What do you want to see from this game against the Saints? And who's one player that is currently on the roster bubble that you think will make the team based on their performance in this game?
Yikes, such the pressure as it will be. You're trying to predict what's going to happen in the preseason 3 game, right? But it's going to be more than just a dress rehearsal. It is the putting together of the pieces. I like that you mentioned that it will primarily be a Sean Payton called game. I think it has to be. I think you have to see your starters all in some capacity, because this is where you're making decisions, but it's also about where you're seeing all the plans come together. So let's start with just final dress rehearsals. I would say extended snaps for not just bubble guys, but we want to see the offense push the ball down the field vertically, because this is the defense, this is the team that you want to go up against. The Saints are not even sure who's going to be their starting quarterback, let alone kind of how they're going to attack the regular season. So I think it's interesting to note there, because at the end of the day, Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shue don't really move the needle for me either way. And I know that's not the only emphasis when it comes to the game of football, but their defense is okay. It's not anyone that I'm going to be too worried about. So the opportunity presents itself, and you're already mismatched there, is what do these wide receivers have on deck that we haven't seen so far? And that's probably some long field gains. I want to see mistakes limited. You talked about penalties already, but the silly boneheaded mistakes have to be really shored up in this game. I want to see a lot of clean football. Mistakes happen, turnovers happen, etc. But the more that you can limit that, it's just a better start to the regular season. Because although we like to say that it doesn't really matter, right, until week 1, I think a lot of this just begs the question of whether or not there's momentum heading into week 1 against the Titans. And I think it's really easy to just say, it's going to be a cakewalk the rest of the day. But this Broncos team has to score another large breadth of points in context to their opposition, because you want to see them maintaining that. And I made a joke to Pat off the record, but I want to make it here too, because the idea is that if they can continue scoring points like this, that's the 2013 absurdity that we saw with Peyton Manning. And I'm not equating the two. Please do not at me or put it in the comments that you think I'm just some silly person who's making that kind of connection. What I want to see is convincing big wins. I want to see this team go out there and light it up, because that allows us to say that they're not playing down to the level of their competition, which I think has been the story of many rosters past. And now now there's a lot on the line here. You asked me though, and we could go a little bit more into what we're seeing here, but wide receiver depth is the topic of conversation. And one player who I think still needs to cement himself for it is Courtney Jackson. Now it leaves a lot of like undrafted players like Joaquin Davis, who's still, trying to make the team as well. And then everyone's going to ask me, okay, Bri, then who doesn't make the team if Courtney Jackson does? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot more to this than I think just making the wide receiver depth, because we've seen his ability as a return specialist. In the kick game alone, I think in today's NFL, the roster spots are tight. We've talked about it literally all episode long. Courtney Jackson is able to provide that depth in special teams as well. And I think it's a deciding factor for Sean Payton as we continue to talk about how much he loves individuals who can come in and play multiple roles and make an impact at both. And I think Courtney Jackson has shown decisiveness as a returner. He's shown burst as a receiver. And I think it gives the Broncos the confidence that they can really flip field position and relieve pressure on the offense by having a guy who can do both. You're already talking about the gun coverage. I get it. I understand. Your whole game plan needs to be, though, is like what's elevating all three parts of the game. And I think Courtney Jackson does that. Now, that begs the question, though, is if he's a bubble guy and if he does make the team, that's 7 wide receivers. We're no longer talking about 6 making the team. We're talking about the potential of 7. And I know it's not something you typically see in the NFL, but I know Pat's over here just foaming at the mouth because he wants to tell you why. But I got to say, if you do it, there's a couple of other guys who we've even talked about on this show right now who probably won't be making the team. And it's not hard to see that you're already lacking the depth on the tight end running back group as far as confident roster guys. So why doesn't it beg the question, if you have someone performing at this level who you're not going to be able to stash on the practice squad because you're not putting those guys down there without losing them to another team? I just think his skill set level is a commodity and not just a nice to have. And so this is where you start getting into the, okay, who do we lose? Honestly, any of the guys in that 4th, 5th, 6th position, you can rotate out. Pat, am I crazy to think that this could be the guy that makes the team?
I don't think you're crazy. I think they're giving him opportunities to showcase those skills, especially that end around. Call it
the reverse.
The reverse, the fly sweep, whatever you want to call it. He took it for 30 yards. I thought that was a fantastic play, and Sean Payton has definitely had that in his back pocket for many years now. We talk about the number of wide receivers. Well, people on Twitter are saying, well, they'll only keep 5 or they'll only keep 6 or whatever. Sean Payton has kept 7 wide receivers on his rosters 4 different times.
4
different times throughout his entire coaching career. And that's a long time. Okay. 7 wide receivers seems mad. It seems insane. But when we really think about it, from that roster construction standpoint, okay, when the cut downs come and we see Michael Burton get released and then brought back on the practice squad as a procedural move, I'm not going to be shocked, right? But how many tight ends are they going to keep? How many running backs are they going to keep? They're probably not going to keep 3 quarterbacks. Sam Ehlinger is not like, he is not the Zach Wilson that they need to keep around. Like no one around the league is like clamoring their hands like, oh, I can't wait for the Broncos to release Sam Ehlinger. I can't wait. No one's doing that. Okay. It's going to be fine. Stidham and Bo will be the quarterbacks. So it gives you the flexibility to keep guys on this roster that you like. Courtney Jackson is probably a guy that other teams are going to look at and say, we want that. Like we could use that type of skill set. There's already teams out there that are monitoring the wide receiver market, right? This whole to-do about, is Devon Vele going to make this team? Well, yeah, probably. But if some team comes calling you about Devon Vele and they're like, hey, we'll throw you a 7th round pick next year, I'm taking that deal. Okay. It's no offense to Vele, but it's like, come on, man. Like they're offering me a late round pick for you. I'm going to take that deal. Okay. Are we counting Evan Ingram as a wide receiver or a tight end? Right. So Sean Payton's done this before. He's not afraid to do it. He's shown that he's not afraid to do it. And I think that a lot of you need to sit back and realize that this guy's going to do what he wants to do. He kept five receivers last year, 5 receivers to start the season. Okay. I thought it would be 6. He did 5. Okay, great. Now a lot of people are saying it's either 6 or 5. It could be 7, right? Based on the depth and the skill set of the team. That's why like that conversation about cornerbacks is so interesting. And the conversation about safeties is so interesting because where they kept 6 last year, they probably keep 5 corners and an extra receiver, or 4 safeties and an extra receiver. Like it's a numbers game. And
how much of it is strategy too? Like you can afford to do it.
You can. And I think having a guy like Courtney Jackson definitely helps, especially like you said, in the kick game. Like Marvin Mims is an all-pro returner. That's fantastic. But we've got bigger things and bigger goals for him. He can still return punts and whatnot, but now we have 2 guys who can do that on the roster. So I don't think it's outlandish at all. I think that's a good player to keep an eye on for this game. He's probably going to get some good touches in this game. Shout out to Jerwan Newton. Hope he gets some run here. But Bri, my player who's on the bubble, who is going to get his roster spot from this game, and really from all of his play this preseason, is going to be Kareem Reed, the linebacker. I think that he has done more than enough to show he is a capable run defender. I'm literally pulled up some of his run plays, and I'm watching him here, and I'm like, man, this kid can play. He was a stellar run defender at Utah. Shocker. And he was a guy that, like, before the draft, maybe he's a late round, 6th, 7th round guy, and they keep him around for special team stuff. No, he's proven that he can be a solid run defender. So in this world where Alex Singleton is coming off an injury, Drake Greenlaw is maybe hurt, maybe not, and they need good special teamers, Kareem Reed is a guy that I would love to see them keep around. He's feisty. He works hard. He is fantastic in the run game. For being a guy his size, he's really strong. So I think, Lavelle Bailey is probably going to make this roster. I think Kareem Reed also has an opportunity to make this roster as well. I think that what he does on special teams is very clean as well. So exciting times for the Broncos, but this cut down, Bri, is going to be very, very brutal. I want to see from this game, I want to see the starting offense come out and operate like it is week 1 against the Titans. Obviously it won't be, but it's got to be clean. The operation's got to be clean. Bo's got to clean the stuff up that we talked about, right? And that he's working on, but it just has to be a smoother operation. Go down and score. I don't care if it's a field goal. I don't care if it's a touchdown or a big bomb or whatever. Just go down and score. They're probably going to get 2 to 3 drive, maybe even a half of football. Make the most out of it. Okay. And then for the guys in the second half of the game, those bubble guys that are fighting for a roster spot, prove you belong. That's what I want to see. Prove you belong. Don't make the small mental mistakes that Sean is talking about. Get aligned correctly, execute the damn play, and let's win some football games this year. That's what I'm looking forward to. Bri, any last thoughts before we get out of here on Broncos and Saints?
I think we're in direct contention with who we think roster bubble guys are, and I think that's okay. Although I'm more in your camp. If defensively keeping a guy like Kareem Reed helps the defense just be that much scarier, then I think that I'm all in on that one. But at the end of the day, we're seeing it, Pat. We talked about team identity heading into this third year of Sean Payton, the second year of Bo Nix, and the era has been solidified. We're going to get an up close view of what this team looks like in a long-term capacity. And I got to say, I like what I've seen so far. So go Broncos.
Going to be a fun time indeed this year. I think we have a good chance to field a really, really solid team. Bri, very excited for this weekend. You can catch the Denver Broncos at the New Orleans Saints this Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. little breakfast game for me. You can follow Bri and I on social media at Bri Maestas 303, at Patrick Chiotti. Make sure you follow at Bleav Network as well. Make sure you subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And don't forget to head over to FanDuel Sportsbook and throw a little action on the Broncos' final preseason game. It's the last one of the preseason. Go ahead. Go crazy. Go do it. Over-unders.
Do it.
Hammer the over. Hammer the overs. 39.5 points. I think Bo Nix's going to go out there and show out. Dome coming 2.0 in effect. We'll see you next week after the game. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.